It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission for September 19, 2022 to order. We'll do roll call. Commissioner Varnell is not available. Commissioner Littlefield? Present. Commissioner Russell?
Here.
Commissioner Hale?
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline?
Here.
Commissioner Wynn?
Here.
I'd like to have the record show that he was sworn in on the 8th of September, so he is a sitting commissioner. Commissioner George, not available, and Commissioner Cornett.
Here.
All right, we have a little feedback. Okay, we'll go on now to the approval of the minutes of the August 15, 2022 meeting. Can I have a motion concerning that, please?
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Cornett. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion on the minutes? Motion to approve from Commissioner Cornett, seconded by Commissioner Hale, and we're ready to vote. Gonna have to do voice, Mr.
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. And let's see here. Everybody else up and running? There it is. So the item has passed with 6 in favor and 1 abstained. Okay. We go on now to reports from the Traffic Management Division and the Counselor's Office.
All right, you've got our standard monthly report before you. As of Friday, the 16th, we are up to 204 signals that are now programmed to operate using leading pedestrian intervals. At the last meeting, I reported we were at 157. So we're adding not quite 50 a month at this rate. I have nothing else to add
Counselor?
unless you've got questions.
Nope.
No reports from the municipal counselor's office.
All right, thank you very much, sir. We go on to the consent docket. It has 2 items, 4A and 4B. Do we have anybody here to speak against one of those items? Okay, staff, do you have any input on that?
No, these are a little bit unusual in as much as we, as staff, we're authorized to make some changes when time is of the essence. In both cases, they were related to school zones. One was related to, the first one was for an access restriction for John Glenn Elementary School, and the second was just to create a new school zone for Scissortail Elementary, which was newly opened for this school year. And both items were recommended for approval.
So what you're saying is that this is one of those things where something came up where you just went ahead and did it because the school year started, and then now we just have to
That's correct.
authorize it.
That's right.
Okay.
This is
no,
ratifying
very
an
good.
action that we took. So that these changes could be in place by the time school
course.
started, ahead of the next regular meeting of the commission.
Okay. Okay, so do we have a motion concerning the consent docket?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any discussion on the consent docket? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 4 from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. And Hale and Schuline. There you go. And we're ready to vote.
Yay.
Okay, we have. Is that because we're voting? You're happy? Yeah. His first vote. Okay, the item has passed with all 7 in favor. All right, we go to item 5, items for individual consideration. Mark Straka to add a stop control on South Pennsylvania Avenue at Southwest 164th Street to establish all-way stop control. Sir, are you here? Yes. Would you like to speak? Yes. If I can have your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes if you come up to the mic, please.
Mark Stryka. I'm from Newcastle, Oklahoma,
and I currently farm the property down in South Pennsylvania. And I used to work for OG&E, and I'm retired. And I have done 34 years with OG&E, and I've also done defensive driving for 34 years. At this particular intersection, if you're traveling down Southwest 164th going west to Pennsylvania, speed limit's 40 miles an hour. Once you get to Pennsylvania, you have to stop. There's no stop signs going north and south on South Penn. The speed limit on South Penn is 50 miles an hour. You have a daycare just to the north of this intersection, along with a new addition that belongs to Gene McCowan. On the west side, there's a new addition going in, which belongs to Mr. Paul Odom III, and he's already started the dirt work on it. That's going to accumulate a lot more traffic. When you get to 164th and you look both ways, you cannot look south because of the obstruction of the trees on private property, so you have to pull out a little bit further. And in my experience over the last 2 years there, they have ran that stop sign, and that could be a very bad wreck there. Also, we have school buses that stop in that area. So with the 149th being going to be reworked, it makes sense for all of us down there that maybe we put a stop sign there and slow that traffic down to 40 miles an hour, because they're going extremely fast. They're not going 50. They're going faster than that, and that road won't accommodate. It's got very large chug holes in it. So that's my point of making the stop signs there. Also, to keep you in the loop, it's not really a general, but there's a big sports complex to the south going in, big baseball field and soccer fields, and you know how kids love to play soccer. We got to have some way to slow the traffic down. And with me farming there and running big equipment, you can't even get on the road. And they go through my fence at least once a week where I run cattle, and I have to fix it. So I would just appreciate if we could take a look at that, see if we could slow this traffic down a little bit by putting stop signs on the north-south of Pennsylvania there at 164th.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Anybody else wanting to speak about 5A? Okay, staff input, please.
All right, you've got our comments before you. We did do an all-way stop control analysis for this particular intersection. The graphic in front of you is a standard manual and uniform traffic control device criteria that we would follow when looking at all-way stop control. In this particular case, Southwest 164th Street will meet traffic volumes for 1 hour out of a required 8 to consider use of all-way stop control. Mr. Straka mentioned he talked about speeds on this. We had done a speed study. We'd found that where it's posted 50 miles an hour, our 85th percentile is actually running 45, and the 50 is running at 40. Always stop controlled intersections are not uncommon, however, at rural section line road intersections. So that's that for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the matter. So action will be at the discretion of the commission.
All right, thank you very much. Can I have a motion concerning item 5A?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve, hoping for some discussion on it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve 5A from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Cornett. All right, sir, you have some comments, or?
Just some concerns. First off, it looks like the people are driving the speed limit on Pennsylvania. And when basically stop signs are to stop traffic. They are not there to really slow down traffic. My biggest concern, so many times that we have gone ahead and authorized signage, sometimes that can be more of a hazard if people aren't going to pay attention to it. If you're already experiencing people running stop signs, that's not going to change just because additional signs are up. I just have some concerns that this is really going to achieve what you're asking it to achieve.
Okay, anybody else wanted to talk?
Mr. Chairman, is there an opportunity to put a flashing signal or something to warn approaching vehicles that it's a dangerous intersection ahead, or something rather than maybe other alternatives to a stop sign?
Well, with respect to the collision experience, which would speak to the as far as a roadway hazard goes, there was one collision that was recorded at the intersection in 2021. Mr. Straka did mention that there was a view obstruction. However, our inspection found that, where we measure decision sight distance, it's at a point from the edge of the intersecting road going 10 feet back. And this particular location we would not consider it to have a view obstruction. So, I mean, and a warning beacon would only be appropriate for drivers approaching on 164th Street because that approach is already stop controlled. But right now, Pennsylvania Avenue has the right-of-way all the way through, but Pennsylvania Avenue does not go further south at this point in time than 179th Street to the south.
I had a question for the applicant. You said something about fences. You had some fences torn out?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What was, I mean,
It's feathered.
Oh, just say it. Yeah, we have it out on
Down
YouTube.
south between 164th and 179th, and I was told not to bring this up, but I'm going to tell you right now since I'm here. It's a hairpin curve, and right there at that hairpin curve, Oklahoma City, just to the east of it, put a sign that says 90-degree turn at 25 mile an hour. I challenge each and every one of you to sit in my pickup, and I'll take that hairpin curve at 25, and you'll go through my fence. And that's what they're doing. I run 165 head of mother cows down there. And once they get out, they're on the road. So that's why we're all hollering about slowing this traffic down. We slow them down, and we won't see this. And I understand you said the trees, but I just drove up to that intersection this morning. Me and my wife did, and I had to pull right up to that lane to see north and south. I'm not going to dispute you on your Google, because I used to Google at OG&E. You have to get out there and see it. But I'm telling you, there's going to be a bad wreck there, and I've worked wrecks just like that officer sitting right there, and it's not pretty, and it's going to happen. It's just a near miss every time we go down through there. So that's all I have to say. And I thank you for hearing me.
Okay, any other discussion? Sir?
One point I noticed, the map that's before me, I can't see farther, I guess it would be north. At 149th and Penn, there is an all-way stop control. And going north of there, I'm not privy to what the pattern is with all-way stop controls, but it would be consistent if there were one at 164th and Penn, in my view.
Okay, any other discussion on item 5A? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5A from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Cornett. Waiting for me, there we go.
I think you just signed out.
We need a voice. Have you already done your voice?
Yay.
Yes, aye.
Okay, item has passed. All in favor? All right. Thank you very much. Okay, we go on now to item 5B. Jeff Korth, traffic signal at Southwestern Avenue and Southwest 107th Street. Jeff, are you here? So if I can have your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Jeff was unfortunately unable to be here. My name is James Rovick. I'm on the board of the Meadow Lake Farms Homeowners Association, and I appreciate the opportunity of speaking today. First off, I do believe that the counter that was placed across Western was disconnected, unfortunately, by the traffic probably within a couple of days. I'm sure your legal team or someone would be able to confirm that or know just exactly how long the traffic count actually was able to be utilized there. But secondly, the 107th Street intersection doesn't just service the 157 homeowners within our addition. It also services a Meadow Lake Retirement Village, which is a 60-unit retirement facility, including 60 units in which many of the senior residents are still driving. Whether or not they should be or not is another story for another time. Meadow Lake Estates Nursing Home is there as well, First United Bank, and over 15 professional service businesses, including an optometrist and vision center, chiropractor, dermatologist, multiple title companies, investment companies, sleep clinics, CPA attorneys, and additional health and hospice service companies. In addition, across Western to the east, there's the Emmanuel Synagogue Cemetery, and although we don't get much in and out traffic from those residents, there is a pretty constant traffic flow of visitors in and out of that cemetery. All in all, our point in this request for a light will not just service the Meadow Lake Farms neighborhood, but will service a very viable and active business community as well. My final point is that it is very difficult to make a left-hand turn onto Western from 107th Street. It's actually sometimes very difficult to even turn right and go south on that because of the traffic and the speed of that traffic. Even though it's a 45-mile-an-hour zone, I'm guessing that probably there's some individuals that are not following that, keeping it very safe. We do have, and as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of older drivers that live, work, and visit the homes and businesses in our 107th Street neighborhood. And on behalf of Jeff and the Meadow Lake Farms Edition, I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wanted to speak about item 5B? Yes, sir. If I could have your name and address, you have up to 5 minutes, and when you're done, fill out one of those blue forms.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
My name's Michael Aston, A-S-T-O-N. I live in Meadow Lake Farms, 10900 Kristen Court. I just wanted to add a couple of things to what James said there. This intersection has been asked before to put a light in the past, and it was declined. And I just wanted to address one of the reasons as to why it was declined. One of them was the expense of putting in a left-hand turn lane in that particular area. And as I've gone around the neighborhood, around where we live, I've found several intersections that are lighted, had a street light, safety light, that did not have a left-hand turn lane. They had a left-hand turn signal, but not a left-hand turn lane. One good example of that is at the corner of Southwest 104th and Kingsgate Drive, where I lived for several years. There's a light there that does not have a left-hand turn lane on either side, but it does have a left-hand turn signal. That signal light was actually put in after a teenage boy was killed while he was struck by a car coming through that intersection going to get pizza for his mom and dad. The other thing I want to mention too is that even though there's not been any real serious accidents at 107th and Western Avenue, there was a young man from Westmore High School, 17-year-old, that was on a motorcycle and was killed less than 100 yards from that intersection while a lady was trying to enter Western Avenue and go. And so I just wanted to let you know that even though there's not been a deadly accident at that corner, there has been several accidents there that were not deadly, but also one that was deadly that was just down the road. That's all I have to say.
All right, and just fill out the blue form right there. Thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak about item 5B? Okay, staff input, please.
All right, you've got our comments before you. In the traffic data summary on the first page, you'll note that we did conduct speed studies in the area. Western Avenue is posted 45. Basically, the speed limit is very well adhered to. We're even running an 85th percentile speed of 46 miles an hour. The speed study did find the highest that we recorded during our study was 54. So, you know, there are those drivers that will opt to travel faster than what's legally posted. This item has been presented to the commission 2 times in the past. It was presented in 2013 and in 2018. In looking at the traffic volumes from both those studies compared to the data that we collected in 22, traffic volume on Western Avenue has basically remained level. In 2013, it was just over 22,000 vehicles a day. When we last studied it in 2018, it was 21,400. At this point in time, when we conducted our study, we got 21,000 vehicles. So there's not very much variance in the volume on Western. It's remained relatively consistent. On Western Avenue, it has crept up a little bit. In 2013, when we first studied, it was just over 1,000, and now we're standing at about 1,100 per day. The rest of the analysis is before you. The one thing that I will mention is that when this item was presented in 2013 and 2018, it did meet warrant 2, which is the 4-hour warrant. And it met it in 13 and in 18, and today it's the only warrant that's currently being met out there. When looking at intersections based on traffic volumes, the two most important warrants are warrant 1, which is the 8-hour vehicle warrant, and then warrant 2, which is a 4-hour vehicle warrant. Warrant 1, the 8-hour warrant, is basically set up to when you're assessing the need for traffic signal based on the volumes on both streets. If you're continuously busy on the main road and on the side road, and a study can find that for safety and access purposes, it would be beneficial to control the intersection using a signal. That's what warrant 1 is set up for. Warrant 2, the 4-hour warrant, is set up more or less for when the side street has greater difficulty accessing the main road, because the main road is a much busier facility. In this particular case, that's the case on Western Avenue. It's not necessarily the case on Southwest 107th Street. There was one gentleman that mentioned something about the cost of a left turn lane being a reason for an item not being approved. Turn lanes are not a reason for that the city has not necessarily not approved something, but we've got to, should the commission approve the request for signal at this intersection, staff is recommending the signal include roadway widening for a dedicated left turn lane on northbound Western Avenue for safer left turn access. Because approval of a traffic signal without the inclusion of turn lane improvements will not afford left turning drivers the ability to do so with a protected left turn phase. Aside from that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on this request.
Well, just to be clear on that left turn lane thing, there are some older intersections that don't have it, but it's a common thing in the traffic commission that if we put a light up, that we try to have a left turn lane, because that left lane, if it's not out of the flow of traffic, becomes a major hazard and for being hit in the back. So over the years, we've worked really hard to, if we do a light, then we try to put in that left turn lane. Is that right, sir?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, on the when voters passed the 2017 bond, in the traffic proposition, more than half the projects listed under traffic were at existing signalized intersections for the purpose of adding left turn lanes, because crash history that we had for those locations suggested that we're getting either right angle crashes or rear end crashes. And an increase in rear end crashes is not uncommon when traffic signals are installed. But yeah, like I said, the 2017 bond, we were basically making up for the past by adding left turn lanes where it was demonstrated they were needed.
All right, thank you. Okay, can I have a motion concerning item 5B?
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Wynn. Do we have any talk on this item? Yes, sir.
With two signals within about a half mile of this location, is there any opportunity to do some type of interconnect to allow for some platooning time to make that turn a little bit easier for that neighborhood? If that makes sense, Stuart?
So are you talking that if a signal is approved at this location, is it possible to coordinate its operation, or are you talking about there's only, in this particular mile of Western, there's only one other signal, and that's at Bobcat Boulevard, which is,
I guess I'm counting the cross street to the north as well. The 106, right.
104th Street,
104th,
that
yeah.
section line road?
Right. So between those two, is there any way of interconnecting those to allow for some more open time at that location?
Actually, and just for general information, we use a system that was put together originally by NASTEC, then purchased by Trafficware. It's now operated by a company called Cubic, and we're able to, using wireless modems, we're able to communicate with every one of our signals. And using the software package that we have, we can actually create time-based coordination from signal to signal. So we have that capability already. So it's possible to modify these things. I don't happen to know whether or not we're running coordination this far south on Western Avenue. I can't answer that question for you, but we've got quite a number of coordinated corridors. So it's possible to try and influence and introduce gaps, but it's not always a reliable thing, because that will only work if you can create an interruption at like a major cross street that's got a signal. If you get basically right turn on reds or entry from other residential areas, it kind of chews up the gaps that you might ordinarily be able to create using a signal. Did that answer your question?
More or less, yeah. And just the idea of, I know we use Wavetronics signal detection, or the vehicle detection systems here. If there's a way of having a vehicle detector that would actually be monitoring that location, that would tie into one of the cabinets for one of these other locations, or one of these other signals as well. Just kind of help out with taking that load into consideration with the signal timing also.
Yes, sir.
Even though I did make the motion to have this approved, I would much rather see if there's a way to coordinate it between Bobcat Boulevard and 104th. I believe that would be a better solution than a lighted intersection if we could time it. The reason I lean towards that is because I live a mile straight west in a neighborhood that is lighted on Pennsylvania Avenue, and the number of people that run that light because they don't think it's really a major light because it's not a 4-lane road, it's a hazard. And the traffic that it stops, keeping you from going out onto a arterial road, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, it can keep you from getting out on Western whenever it's clear. So between those two things, between people ignoring the light and it being restrictive, if there's a way to coordinate those two lights on 104th and Bobcat, that seems to be a better alternative, if that's possible.
Well, it could be possible to do that over at Bobcat, but that's associated with Brinks, and Brinks Junior High School is only in session for a certain amount of time during the year, and generally speaking, the light dwells green on Western because there is no side street activity on Brinks. So we wouldn't be able to just automatically cycle through it to create an interruption. It's pretty much just dependent on the only time that Bobcat Boulevard signal changes is when there's a demand from the school. And that doesn't typically occur during the peak hours. It may be in the mornings and the school's release time in the afternoon, and then for the rest of the year when the school's not in session, it probably doesn't change at all.
Yes, sir.
I guess with that idea is, because I like the idea of, obviously I brought it up, the idea of trying to do the kind of an artificial platooning or gap there. If there's a way of getting a signal detection that would look at 107th and kind of be the west side of what Bobcat Drive would be, technically, because Bobcat Drive, it looks like, or Bobcat Boulevard, there's not actually a west connector to it, correct?
Right, it's literally just for Brinks Junior High School.
Yeah. And so because it's almost always a green time when the school's not in session, if we could utilize some of the traffic detection of what's going on 107th to artificially go ahead and put a red light down Bobcat, a lot of the northbound traffic would be able to be stopped, which would allow left turners coming out on 107th. A little more.
I can appreciate where you're coming from, but from a traffic management perspective, we would probably be contacted about saying a traffic signal is malfunctioning when a light goes red for a driveway when there's no activity there. We'd be getting calls indicating that signal timing is off.
Okay, do we have any other talk on, yes, sir?
I believe that by the time an organized neighborhood association is on their third attempt to accomplish something, that says a lot about what that neighborhood and the people that live in it are observing compared to what we're privy to. Ordinarily, this kind of situation would be something that I probably wouldn't consider, but the fact that it's a third attempt gives it a little bit more importance to me.
All right, very good. Anybody else have comments on item 5B? Yes, sir?
I forgot to request, if this were to pass, I think it would be fair and appropriate to share with the applicant what to expect as far as the timeline is concerned with this type of application being approved. Thanks.
Well, and that is covered in on the 5th page of the report under next actions, because if the commission approves the request, the applicant would be advised that there are no existing funding sources for traffic signals approved by the commission. So if approved, the signal and the pertinent roadway improvements will be added to an unfunded projects list. And projects on the unfunded public improvements list are typically considered by the city during the planning of future general obligation bond programs. And currently we're working under the 2017 bond program, and I don't know what the status would be on a set date for a future bond issue.
So if you really want the light, if this gets approved through us and you really want it, then you need to get a hold of your city council person. And the city council person can go ahead and maybe help motivate Public Works to move it up in the rack and stack, or however that works. But you know, they're the ones that can help with the obligation of funds. Very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, we do have a housekeeping thing. No, I did not make sure that the motion included staff comments, because staff comments was talking about the left turn. So to Commissioner Hale, does it include staff comments on your motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the request with staff recommendations.
All right, and then Commissioner Wynn, your second?
Second.
Okay, good. I just wanted to clear that up. Okay, any other talk on item 5B? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5B to include staff comments from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Wynn. And we're waiting now. And we're waiting, I know you are. Sorry, I forgot to do that earlier so you could get caught up. Do you need to kick it? And we need a voice?
No.
Okay, item has passed with 6 in favor and 1 against. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry, there was 1 X. Right? I thought there was only one with a red. Can you call that back up so we can verify? Sorry. The two were not present, I think, is what you saw.
I thought Richard had come up.
I thought I saw it at exit there, but I thought I hit yay here.
Well, we're going to verify here. And you had 6 yeses. Okay, so the item did pass with 6 in favor and 1 against. Okay? So now we go on to item 5C, Kylie Erickson, all-way stop control at Still Meadows Drive and Northwest 160th Street. Are you here? All right. Can I have your name and your address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Sure. My name is Kylie Erickson. I live at 16100 Red Clover Circle. I am a police officer with Oklahoma City Police Department. I have worked in patrol for 18 years. The residence that I'm speaking about today is the residence that I live in. The main reason I bring this application forward is to obtain a stop sign and to make the intersection safer. We have an enormous amount of children in our neighborhood, pedestrians that walk their dogs, elderly, and this is the main intersection that gets you to the pool. The playground is on the corner here, and that is just where everyone is at. It is the common area of the neighborhood. And so during the summer, it's crazy with the pool and everything like that. It also is the intersection for Deer Creek's school bus stop. It stops 3 times in the morning at this intersection and drops off at 3 times, different times in the afternoon. So there's always groups of kids that are congregating on the corners. You can see like just in the grass areas, and there's just a lot of kids that hang out in this area a lot. What I've seen, my house is a little bit farther to the east, but I can see the intersection as a whole, and so what is common is people will come up to the intersection when they're traveling on Still Meadows Drive, and they're trying to pass over the wider intersection of 160th. It has that center median, which has trees and things, so they kind of have to creep out a little bit, kind of mentioned, like the other gentleman had mentioned. They have to creep, and sometimes they get caught. Now they can't go because there's a car coming, and they're like, and they're stuck. So if they can't back up, it puts them in a very dangerous spot where they could get in a collision. So that is something that is concerning, that width of that intersection there's not a lot of time for people to get across that safely. And that is the main point of putting a stop sign there, to bring more awareness to that intersection that has a lot of people in it. The growth of our neighborhood, we started with 90 homes. We now have, and that was kind of the original layout of the way the intersection and the yield signs that are there. There's not a lot of control within the neighborhood. So we started with 90, we now have over 300 homes. And to the south of us, there's now a new addition that's going in. This addition is now going to have access to our road. I think they had tried to get it to where they weren't allowed to have access to the Still Meadows Drive, and that was turned down. So all these new homes that are going to be built to the south of us will now travel through Still Meadows Drive to 160th to be able to exit out onto MacArthur or to wiggle their way through to 164th. So that's going to dramatically increase the numbers of vehicles that are going to come to this intersection. So those are the main reasons that I bring this forward. There was not a single pushback through all the community. There was people wanting to sign that weren't even necessarily needed to sign, a lot of moms that were doing crazy mom things wanting to get a stop sign. So the main thing that I ask is that this is something that we consider for the safety of the kids and everyone that's involved in the neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Anybody else want to speak on item 5C? Okay, staff.
All right, you've got our comments before you. This particular location at this time, does not have a traffic entering volume sufficient to meet the city's or the MUTCD traffic warrant criteria for considering all-way stop control. The applicant has provided a petition demonstrating local support for the requested traffic control change. And given continued development in the area, action on the item will be at the discretion of the commission.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for item 5C?
Make a motion to approve.
Say that again, sir.
I make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Russell. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Commissioner Cornett. Any discussion about item 5C? Yes, sir.
Instead of going to always stop automatically, is there any benefit from switching it from yield signs to just stop signs?
If something like that was considered, you could base a decision based on looking at the volumes that are shown on the first page of your report. The traffic entering volumes we show on Still Meadows Drive currently is running at 228 vehicles a day, and east-west on 160th Street is running in the neighborhood of 1,152 vehicles per day. The location would probably be suitable for, potentially a north-south stop, because the east-west street is the heavier carrier. But currently, the intersection is basically set up like that because we do have north-south yields in place on Still Meadows.
But the point is, sir, there's new housing that's going into the south that's going to increase the flow on that road is one. And the other point is that's the pool area in that whole area there. And by just putting stop signs there, that would just slow everything down right there for all that people traffic. Okay? Any other discussion on item 5C?
First of all, thank you for your service. And second, because Commissioner Varnell is not here, I would like to say thank you for getting your support of your community and bringing that and letting us know that your neighborhood is also supportive of this change.
Okay, any other comments about 5C? Okay, we have a motion to approve 5C from Commissioner Russell and seconded by Commissioner Cornett. Can we have your votes, please?
Yes.
Item has passed with all in favor. All right, we go on now to item 6, comments from citizens. Anybody want to address the Traffic Commission? Okay, we go to reports from other traffic commissioners and committees. So we'll start over there with Commissioner Littlefield.
Nothing specific at this time.
Very good. Commissioner Russell.
No, I'm good, fine.
Okay, Commissioner Hale.
A couple of things. I would really like to see us do some follow-up as far as we have applicants come in, they make their appeal, we approve it. I'm just kind of curious, did we achieve what the applicant asked us to do besides putting a sign up? If they come in and say that the speed limit's it's just terrible to get out, we can't get out on Western or wherever, I would like to know 6 months from now after we approve something, did we achieve what we tried to do? I think not only for our information, but I also believe that it would be good for future applicants. If they say, hey, speeding's really bad in my neighborhood, I want such and such. We don't have any point of reference right now to come back to and say, we've done this before and it did not work, or it did. So I would really like some type of feedback on the items that we approve to find out, are we achieving what they're asking for?
So like maybe when they do their staff report, they just pick one item and they say, 14 months ago you approved stop signs at this intersection because people were saying all this was going on, that they make a call to the applicant and say, what do you guys think? Is it working? Is it doing what it's supposed to? Something like that is what
I'd
you're
like to see
thinking?
an email or a letter for a paper trail, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you would call and the staff would check and they would report on maybe one a month or something, just as different things.
If they could just check back with the applicant, did what you request, and we did approve, did it achieve what you were, the end result? I, for one, it would help me out to know any future applicants, if they come up and say, this is what we think will work, if we had some historical record to base my decision off of. I don't know about the rest of the commissioners, but I think I would find it helpful.
We can certainly do something along that line. certain items will lend themselves to verification better than others. I mean, certainly contacting applicants and asking whether or not they think that their application being approved has achieved anything, that would be more of a subjective thing. But if we look at it more objectively, in the instance we've got like a speed limit change request, and the commission votes to either raise or lower a speed to accommodate a request, we can go back and do a study, a speed study. And that, I think, would probably be more telling, because rather than just surveying one person, you're surveying hundreds. And and something like that would probably be more telling. Because I know that there's been interest expressed in the past over, have what we've done, has what the commission done made a difference? Because there are a number of locations where speed limits have been reduced because the applicants were concerned about either neighborhood safety or just access safety, and so they wanted a lower speed limit on a road. But there are several locations where we have studied and restudied and found that even posting a lower limit hasn't necessarily achieved anything in the way of meaningful results. So we can certainly do that, because if it would be beneficial to the commission to be able to, to talk to an applicant saying, in the cases where we do this, we find that certain types of requests can have kind of a big impact, and other requests probably go unnoticed. But we can certainly do that, and I think that starting with something where we're doing something like a follow-up on a speed limit change, that would probably be a great thing to do. But in the case of like a new addition, such as the one you just heard at Still Meadows, there's new work that's going on to the south. It doesn't have a crash experience to basically gauge. I mean, has putting in always stop reduced the number of crashes? Well, I mean, if you go from one crash over a year to zero, you can say that it's had remarkable influence. But if you had like 0 crashes before and you go to 1, you can say, well, it might be the worst thing that you've ever done. So it's not a big enough sample set to be able to make a meaningful decision. But we can certainly do that. And I think that speed limit changes would probably be a great thing to do, because then you're not necessarily getting an applicant's word for it, you're getting the general public's word.
If we just had some type of feedback, systematic, to where we sat down, 6 months from after we decided on a speed limit, whatever our criteria is going to be, but some systematic method of reporting back to the commission that this was what was asked for, this is what you did, and this was the result 6 months later. Other than the one last thing I have is, what happened to ASAP? I have not heard anything.
It is in review. I hope to get something back shortly, but I'm awaiting comments before we can take it back. I know the last thing that was being considered was, because right now the way the program is structured, it's basically applicant funded. I mean, if an applicant wants like a driver speed feedback sign, then they can get approved through the program to have one installed. But I know the Public Works Department is looking at maybe finding a funding source so that it could be a joint venture where maybe the city will pay half of the cost and basically share equally with applicants.
I'm going to tag on to that, because that was going to be my question too, is what can we do to get it off High Center? Because I've asked for reports multiple times this year and we haven't heard anything as far as the progress. It's been that same response. So kind of like, what can we do to move it along? Or this, whenever I joined, the ASAP program had been in review, or had been in writing for 3 years. And so now we're at 5.5 years in, and there's not a lot of ASAP about that. But speed abatement is by far what we get the most questions about, but we're not able to do anything about it. So kind of, what can we do?
I will pass this up the chain to my director, and because I know it's a priority for him, but I have to get some clear guidance on the end so we can bring it forward again. I know that since it was first presented, we had driver speed feedback signs as being the only available option, and now we're looking at adding basically mini traffic circles, speed humps, and speed cushions. So there are new tools that have been added to it, but But the thing that has been, I think, the hardest nut to crack is finding out how the city is going to change from moving from a totally user-funded program to maybe a user and jointly city-funded program. And the funding is always, that's
But
always
if
the
a
most difficult
neighborhood
thing.
were to come to you and say, we want something that abates speed, we are willing to pay 100% of that. Is that an option in the interim until we can figure out the city structure of helping to pay for some of those things?
I don't think we've had a neighborhood come and volunteer to
Sure.
pay for 100% of
They're probably not
anything.
going
So it's
to,
more of a
but
hypothetical.
if that's ultimately, they say, our neighborhood association, this is really what we want, we're requesting stop signs because that's all we know, but you can say, here's your other option, could we go that route?
If we can get the program rolled out, that'd be a decision I can't make.
Sure, sure. But that's my,
I understand.
pass along.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Hale and Merrick. I had a visit, a very, very long visit with Councilman Cooper. Tuesday evening, he came to our Neighbors Night Out event, which was wonderful, very late. So it gave us an opportunity to visit, and this was one of the subjects we visited about in length. He apparently made comments at last Tuesday's City Council meeting in regard to this, the exact same questions I think that the two of you proposed, and he wants to see this get done, and I think that he had some other details that he shared with me about it, about future, like maybe tomorrow, if there is a meeting tomorrow with City Council, there's going to be more talk about it. So I think that's what it's going to take. It's going to take our city council persons to work with Eric Wenger and Stuart and who else is necessary to get a document, get an application before the city council. And I'd like to see that sped up personally. I could be dead any day, and I've been working on this for a decade. So, not trying to scare any of you. I don't plan on going anywhere. Another point that I want to add to the conversation is I received an email from Georgie Rasco at the Neighborhood Alliance. It was addressed to all traffic commissioners. I received it. I don't know if anybody else received it. She was reporting a story about an Oklahoma City police officer, Scala, maybe, I'm not going to remember his name, had visited some community in Florida and had noticed that at neighborhood stop signs, there were speed humps. So not only did they do a stop sign, but they did a speed hump right there at those locations. And his report and observation was, it seemed like it got people to stop, number one, and it definitely slowed people down as they were easing over them or departing them. So the list of traffic calming measures never seems to end. They're always coming up. But Georgie was very inquisitive about where are we with this program? Can we make this suggestion to get that into one of the measures? So I think it's, if we're going to have a program that's going to benefit some of the applications that we even had today, we should do it. This is modern 2022. There are traffic calming measures available and installed all over the United States, except we are still stuck with these stop signs, where there could be some really effective, in my opinion, measures implemented in these very cases that we saw today that would more likely have an effective outcome compared to what we did today. So I'm off my soapbox, but I'm at a point where I want to find a way for this commission and our city council to receive something from Public Works that addresses this program that was approved many years ago. And I believe my colleagues present, Georgie Roscoe with the Neighborhood Alliance, police officers and others, see that as a viable, valuable opportunity and tool. Thanks. I wasn't going to say anything to that.
Okay. You have anything else, sir?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I believe that my colleagues have already spoken. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, and to Commissioner Wynn.
Just very excited to be on the commission, really appreciate that, and just excited to be part of everything. Thanks.
Over to Commissioner Cornett.
Nothing to add.
Okay, the only thing I have is some housekeeping for next month. Chairman and vice chairman, if you want to step up, just let us know. And we'll go from there. Anybody else? So that takes care of item 7. We go on now, just before item 8. Anybody have anything else for the Traffic Commission? All right, we're adjourned.